All right, let's dive into something a little spooky today.
Oh, yeah.
We're going deep on the Boogeyman,
Sounds fun.
that shadowy figure that seems to be
Yeah.
under the bed and in closets all around the world.
He really is everywhere, isn't he?
I mean, in every culture.
It's true.
It seems like there's some version of this creature lurking in the shadows.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The Boogeyman. He's not just a monster, you know?
Right.
He embodies, like, the fears we use to warn and control, especially children.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So it's less about an actual creature and more like using that fear as a tool.
Exactly. He's this blank slate, and onto it, every culture projects its own specific anxieties and taboos.
Okay.
And that leads to some really creepy variations.
Well, before we get to all the different flavors of Boogeyman, let's start with the basics. Like, what even is the origin of the word Boogeyman?
Well, the word bogeyman can actually be traced back to Middle English words. Words like bug and bog. They basically meant frightening specter or scarecrow. And it's related to words like boggart and bugbear.
I've heard of boggart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alarming at something meant to scare.
Right. So the word itself is like inherently linked to fear.
Mm-hmm.
But even though the word bogeyman only dates back to the 15th century,
Right.
I'm guessing the stories themselves are much older.
Oh, absolutely. These tales have likely been passed down for centuries, you know,
Yeah.
shaping childhoods and instilling that sense of caution.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where the real mystery lies, you see. How has this idea endured across so many cultures? And for so long?
And speaking of all those different cultures,
Yes.
it's amazing how the bogeyman is not just a one-size-fits-all monster.
Mm-hmm.
Every corner of the world has its own version.
It's true. While the core concept remains pretty consistent,
Yeah.
you know, a creature used to punish bad behavior,
Right.
the specifics can get wildly different.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like a global tapestry of terror.
Okay, I like that. A global tapestry of terror.
Woven together by threads of folklore and imagination.
Okay, so where should we start on this world tour of Boogeymen? What are some of the most well-known examples?
Let's start with a classic, the Sack Man. He pops up in various forms across Latin America and Europe.
The Sack Man. That sounds ominous. What's his deal?
Well, just picture a shadowy figure who stuffs naughty children into a sack and carries them away.
Oh.
It plays on that primal fear of being trapped and taken away from everything familiar.
Yeah, no, just the image of the sack is already enough to give me chills.
Right.
And you said he has different names depending on the country.
He does. In Spanish-speaking countries, he's often called El Hombre del Costal, while in Portuguese, it's O Homem do Saco.
Which both mean.
You guessed it. The Sack Man.
Okay, the Sack Man. It's interesting how that sack itself seemed to be a universally terrifying symbol. Is there something inherently creepy about a sack?
That's a great question. I think it has to do with the unknown. You see, a sack obscures what's inside, creating a sense of mystery and potential danger. It's like a portable black hole of fear.
Yeah.
Plus, it represents confinement, helplessness, the loss of control. Right?
All things that tap into our deepest anxieties.
Now that you mention it, even as adults, we still use that imagery of sacks to represent fear or the unknown.
We do.
Like he was left holding the bag, or that's a whole other bag of worms.
Exactly. The symbolism persists even when we're no longer afraid of a literal bogeyman snatching us in the night.
So we have the Sack Man lurking in the shadows, ready to whisk away those misbehaving children.
Yes.
What other bogeyman figures await us on this global tour?
Well, staying in the Spanish-speaking world, let's talk about El Coco.
Del Cuco.
Now, this one's a bit different. He's even found in lullabies and rhymes.
Wait, so parents sing about this scary creature to their children?
They do.
Why would they do that?
It might seem counterintuitive, but it's a common tactic to instill good behavior, you see?
Yeah.
It's like a gentle warning wrapped in a spooky package.
Okay.
Go to sleep, or El Coco will come get you.
I guess when you put it that way, it makes sense. It's like a bedtime story, but with a dark twist.
Is.
But where did the name El Coco even come from? It comes from coconuts.
Coconuts.
Yeah. Apparently, the 3 indentations on a coconut shell kind of look like a face. In some cultures, that resemblance was enough to transform the humble coconut into a source of fear.
Wow. I never would have guessed that. It's amazing how even seemingly innocuous objects can become, like, imbued with fear.
It can.
And woven into these cautionary tales.
It really speaks to the power of storytelling and how cultures imbue everyday objects with deeper meaning, you know?
Yeah.
And in this case, a coconut becomes a symbol of potential threat, a reminder to children to behave or face the consequences.
So from sacks to coconuts, it seems like anything can become a bogeyman.
anything.
If you have a good enough story. This is fascinating.
Huh.
What other stops are on our Boogeyman World Tour?
Well, let's head over to Brazil, where we encounter a bogeyman with a slightly different twist. A cuca.
Okay, a kuka. That sounds a bit more exotic than our previous Boogeyman. What makes her unique?
Well, she's often depicted as a terrifying female alligator, or sometimes as an old woman. But guess what?
What?
She often carries a sack, too.
Another sack. It seems like that's a recurring theme.
It is, and it reinforces the idea that certain objects or images have this universal power to evoke fear, regardless of culture. But a kuka is fascinating because she also challenges that traditional image of the bogeyman as like a purely male figure.
That's a good point. We have been saying he, but it's clear these fear-inducing figures can take on many forms,
They can.
including female ones.
Absolutely. And a kuka is a prime example of how these figures embody different cultural anxieties. In some Brazilian folklore, she's associated with the dangers of the Amazon rainforest.
Oh, wow.
Representing the wild, untamed forces of nature.
So she's not just a kidnapper,
Mhm.
but also represents that fear of the unknown and the power of the natural world.
Mhm.
This is amazing. Where to next on our terrifying tour?
Let's venture into the central and eastern Mediterranean region where we encounter a bogeyman known as Babao.
Oh, okay, I'm already getting chills. What do we know about this one?
He's often depicted as a shadowy figure lurking in dark corners, ready to snatch children who misbehave. In Italy, he's known as uomo nero, which literally means the black man.
Okay.
He typically wears a heavy black coat and hides his face.
Black coat, hidden face. Sounds like the classic image of a sinister stranger. It plays on that fear of the unknown,
It does.
of someone lurking in the shadows with ill intentions.
Exactly. And parents in this region have a particularly clever way of invoking Babo to keep their children in line. They would often knock under the table, simulating Babo's arrival to quickly scare their children into obedience.
That's both hilarious and terrifying.
It is.
I can imagine how effective that would be. A sudden knock in the darkness whispers of Bubbo.
Yeah.
It definitely sends shivers down my spine.
It's a playful yet slightly terrifying parenting tactic that highlights how these figures are woven into everyday life.
All right, we've explored sackmen, coconut heads, and alligator ladies.
We have.
I'm starting to think the Bogeyman is more diverse than the cast of a blockbuster movie. I think so, too.
Where does our global tapestry of terror take us next?
Let's head north to Germany, a country with a rich folklore tradition, and you guessed it, a whole host of bogeyman figures.
Oh, I knew Germany wouldn't disappoint. They seem to have a bogeyman for every occasion. What are some of their most notorious ones?
They have Butzemann, a name that just sounds inherently creepy,
Right.
and De Schwarzemann, which, like the Italian L'Uomo Nero, translates to the black man.
Okay.
This figure typically hides in dark corners and is said to carry children away.
The black man lurking in the shadows. That imagery seems to transcend cultures, doesn't it? It speaks to that primal fear of the unknown,
It does.
of something hidden and potentially dangerous.
It certainly does. And it's fascinating how these figures are not only used to scare children, but also become integrated into cultural practices.
Oh, really?
For example, there's a popular children's game in Germany called Wer hat Angst vorm schwarzen Mann, which means who's afraid of the black man.
Wait, so they have a game based on this fearsome bogeyman figure?
They do.
That's wild. It is, and it shows how deeply ingrained these figures are in the culture. The game involves chasing and tagging with the black man, trying to catch the other players. It's a way for children to confront their fears in a playful and safe environment.
That's a fascinating way to approach fear. It's like they're turning the bogeyman into something they can control
They are.
and even have fun with.
Exactly. It highlights how these figures can serve multiple purposes within a culture, you know?
Yeah.
They can instill fear, but they can also be a source of entertainment and even a way to help children process those fears.
We've covered a lot of ground in our Bogeyman World Tour,
A lot.
and it's amazing how each one reflects the anxieties and cultural norms of its region.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg. There must be countless other bogeymen lurking out there, just waiting to be discovered.
Oh, there are. The world of the bogeyman is vast and varied,
Oh, yeah.
with a chilling tale to be found in nearly every corner of the globe.
Well, we've barely scratched the surface of this global tapestry of terror. And I can't wait to see what other creepy creatures await us. Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the world of the bogeyman.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our exploration of the bogeyman.
So before we went on our little world tour,
Right.
you mentioned how the bogeyman embodies these fears we use to warn and control, especially with children.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about that a lot, and it seems like there's a fine line between using fear as a teaching tool and actually traumatizing kids.
That's a very insightful point. It is a delicate balance.
Right.
On the one hand, fear can be a powerful motivator,
Yes.
helping children learn about danger and consequences.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, excessive fear can be harmful,
Right.
leading to anxiety and even phobias.
So how do we make sense of that? Is the boogeyman ultimately helpful or harmful?
I think it depends on the context and how these figures are used. In many cultures, the bogeyman is woven into these cautionary tales that teach valuable lessons about safety and responsibility. Take, for example, the Kalupiluit from Inuit mythology.
Oh, yeah. Those are the creepy figures that lurked in the water.
That's right. They're said to snatch children who wander too close to the icy waters.
Right.
It's a vivid image that serves as a powerful warning
Yeah.
to stay away from dangerous areas.
It's like a scary story with a built-in safety lesson.
It is.
It makes sense if you can tap into a child's fear. Those lessons might stick with them a lot longer.
Exactly. And in that sense, the bogeyman can be seen as a tool for cultural transmission,
Right.
passing down important knowledge about survival and appropriate behavior.
Okay, so in some cases, the boogeyman can actually be helpful in teaching kids about real-world dangers.
Yes.
But what about the more abstract fears he embodies, like the fear of the unknown or the fear of being taken away?
Those are primal fears that are common to all humans,
Right.
regardless of culture. And the bogeyman gives those fears a tangible form, a name, a
right.
story. In a way, it helps children externalize those anxieties
Right.
and gives them something concrete to grapple with.
I guess when you're a kid, the world can feel like a pretty big and scary place.
It can.
And having a figure like the boogeyman, even if it's frightening, can help you make sense of those abstract fears.
Precisely. It's like giving a face to the darkness.
Yeah.
And by facing those fears, even in a symbolic way, children can start to develop coping mechanisms and a sense of agency.
That's really interesting. So it's not just about scaring kids into obedience, but also about helping them navigate those early anxieties and understand the world around them.
Exactly. The bogeyman can be both a teacher and mirror,
Okay.
reflecting our deepest fears while also providing a framework for understanding and overcoming them.
This is blowing my mind. I never realized there was so much depth to this whole boogeyman
I
thing.
know, it's fascinating, isn't it?
But it's not just the psychological aspect that's fascinating. It's the sheer diversity of these figures across cultures. We've already encountered some pretty wild examples on our world tour, and I'm itching to see what other creepy creations await us.
Well, let's continue our journey then, shall we? We left off in Germany, but there are countless other bogeyman figures lurking in the shadows around the world.
Lead the way. I'm ready for more chills and cultural insights.
All right, let's venture further north then to the icy landscapes of the Arctic, where the Inuit people have their own chilling tales to tell. Have you ever heard of the Ijurak?
The Ijurak. That name sounds oddly beautiful for a boogeyman.
Yeah.
What's his story?
Well, he's not your typical bogeyman. The Ijurak is a shapeshifter known for kidnapping children and leading them astray in the vast Arctic wilderness.
Okay, so definitely not someone you want to bump into on a snowy night.
Yeah.
But you said he's a shapeshifter.
Yes.
That adds a whole other layer of creepiness.
It does. The Ijurak can take on any form,
Oh, wow.
making it even harder to identify and avoid. But there's an interesting twist to this tale.
Oh.
Unlike many other bogeyman figures, the Ijurak can be tricked into releasing his captives.
Oh, really? So there's a loophole. That's not something you typically find in boogeyman stories.
It is unusual, according to Inuit folklore. If you can make the Ijurak laugh, he'll be so amused that he'll let the children go.
Wow, so laughter is the key to defeating this particular boogeyman. That's a pretty unique twist. It suggests that even in the face of fear, there's always a possibility for hope.
Yes.
And even humor.
It's a reminder that even the most fearsome creatures can have unexpected weaknesses. And sometimes a little bit of wit and cunning can be more powerful than brute force.
Okay, I am loving this. The Ijurak is definitely one of the more intriguing bogeymen we've encountered so far. But I have a feeling the Arctic has more chills in store for us. What other creatures lurk in those frozen landscapes?
Well, if you're afraid of the water, you might want to stay away from the Kalupiluit.
The Kalupiluit, that name sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
And I'm sensing a water theme here, given our previous discussion about the dangers of the Arctic waters.
You're right on the mark. The Kalupiluit are said to be monstrous creatures that live in the ocean and snatch children who wander too close to the water's edge. They're typically depicted with long, sharp fingernails, perfect for grabbing unsuspecting victims.
Okay, that's a classic nightmare scenario right there.
Yeah,
It plays on that primal fear of being dragged into the depths, never to be seen again.
exactly. And it reinforces the idea that the bogeyman often embodies our deepest fears.
Right.
Whether they're related to specific environments like the Arctic Ocean or more universal anxieties like the fear of the unknown.
It's amazing how these tales passed down through generations continue to resonate with us.
Yeah.
Even if we don't believe in literal monsters anymore, those primal fears still linger in our collective subconscious.
They do. And the bogeyman gives those fears a shape, a name, a story. It allows us to confront them,
Right.
even if it's only through the lens of folklore and imagination.
So from shape-shifting kidnappers to child-snatching sea monsters, the Arctic is clearly not for the faint of heart.
Roar.
What other chilling destinations await us on our Bogeyman World Tour? I'm ready to brave the unknown and see what other creepy creatures lurk in the shadows.
Well, let's cross the Atlantic and head to Europe once again. This time we'll explore a bogeyman figure with a particularly evocative name, Le Croque-Mitaine.
Le croque-mitaine. That sounds French, and I have a feeling it doesn't translate to anything pleasant.
You'd be right about that. Le Croque-Mitaine literally means the mitten biter, or even more unsettling, the hand cruncher.
Ouch. That's a pretty gruesome image. I can see why parents would use that one to scare kids into good behavior. No one wants to lose a hand to a bogeyman.
It's certainly a vivid deterrent, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it highlights how these figures often target specific behaviors like thumb-sucking or nail-biting that parents want to discourage.
It's like a tailor-made nightmare for every bad habit.
Yeah.
I bet Le Croque-Mitaine was particularly effective in getting kids to keep their hands to themselves. But it's interesting how even the most frightening bogeymen often have a touch of whimsy or absurdity to them.
You're right. There's often a dark humor woven into these tales,
Right.
which might seem strange, but it actually serves an important purpose.
Oh,
Well, by adding a touch of absurdity or even humor, it makes these figures slightly less terrifying and perhaps a bit more manageable for children to process.
that makes sense. It's like saying, yes, this creature is scary, but it's also a bit ridiculous, so you don't need to be completely terrified.
Exactly. It's a way to acknowledge the fear while also providing a sense of distance and perspective.
Okay, so Le Croque-Mitaine might bite your hand off, but at least he does it with a bit of French flair. I'm loving how each bogeyman reveals something about the culture it comes from. Where to next on our journey? I'm ready for more cultural quirks and creepy creatures.
Well, let's head north again, this time to the land of fire and ice, Iceland. Prepare yourself for the chilling tale of Grýla.
Grýla. That name sounds like it's straight out of a Norse saga. What kind of bogeyman are we dealing with here?
Grýla is a giantess, a troll-like creature who lives in the mountains, and, like many other bogeymen, has a penchant for misbehaving children. But there's a twist to her story that makes her particularly terrifying.
I'm intrigued. What makes Grýla stand out from the crowd of child-snatching creatures?
Well, she's known for devouring naughty children on Christmas Eve.
Talk about ruining the holidays. That's one way to ensure good behavior leading up to Christmas, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty dark twist on the holiday spirit.
It is, and it highlights how these figures can be woven into the very fabric of a culture,
Right.
even its most cherished holidays.
It's like the bogeyman is always lurking in the shadows, even during the most festive times of year. I'm starting to see how these figures are more than just scary stories. They're reflections of cultural values, anxieties, and even humor.
You're absolutely right. The bogeyman is a multifaceted figure, and exploring his many forms reveals a wealth of insights into the human experience across cultures.
Well, our global tapestry of terror is becoming richer and more complex with every stop. I'm eager to see what other chilling tales await us. Where to next on our exploration of the bogeyman?
Let's shift gears and head to the towering peaks of the Himalayas, where the Nepali people have their own terrifying tale to tell. Have you ever heard of the Guru Mappa?
Guru Mappa. That name sounds almost mythical, like something out of ancient legend.
That's an apt description. The Guru Mappa is a mythical creature often described as an ape-like being with a ferocious appetite for, you guessed it, children.
So we have sack men, coconut heads, alligator ladies, mitten biters, a Christmas-ruining giantess, and now a child-eating Yeti-like creature. Our bogeyman roster is getting pretty impressive.
It is, isn't it? And it highlights the incredible diversity of these figures. They can be humanoid, animalistic, or even something in between.
Yeah.
Reflecting the specific fears and cultural contexts of each society.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It seems like every culture takes those universal fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of being taken away, the fear of the dark, and molds them into a unique creature that reflects their own specific anxieties.
That's a very insightful observation. The bogeyman is both a universal archetype and a cultural chameleon,
Right.
adapting to fit the specific needs and fears of each society.
Okay, so we've ventured from the icy Arctic to the towering Himalayas encountering a fascinating array of Boogeyman figures along the way. But I have a feeling there are still countless other chilling tales waiting to be unearthed. Where else does our global tapestry of terror take us?
Well, let's head south to Africa, where we encounter a bogeyman figure with a particularly mischievous and sometimes menacing reputation. Have you ever heard of the Tokolosh?
The Tokoloshes, that's a new one for me. What makes him so unique?
The Tokolosh is a fascinating figure because he embodies both mischief and menace. He's often described as a small, hairy, dwarf-like creature with a mischievous streak.
Okay, so a bit of a trickster figure.
Mm.
But you say he can also be menacing.
He can. In some traditions, the Tokolosh is believed to be capable of causing harm,
Oh, wow.
even death. He's also been associated with sexual assault, particularly of women in their dreams.
Wow, that takes a dark turn. So he's not just a mischievous prankster,
Yeah.
but a figure who can embody very real fears and anxieties.
Exactly. And that duality is what makes him so fascinating. He represents that fine line between playfulness and danger, reminding us that even the seemingly harmless can sometimes harbor a darker side.
I'm noticing a theme here. It seems like many of these bogeyman figures occupy that liminal space between the mundane and the supernatural,
They do.
the playful and the terrifying. They're not always purely evil creatures, but often embody a more complex blend of traits.
That's a very astute observation, and it speaks to the nature of fear itself, which often arises from that sense of ambiguity,
Yeah.
that uncertainty about what's real and what's imagined, what's safe and what's dangerous.
So from the icy Arctic to the sun-drenched savannas of Africa, we've encountered a truly diverse cast of bogeyman figures.
We have.
Each one reflects the unique fears and cultural values of its region, while also tapping into those universal anxieties that connect us all.
It's a testament to the power of storytelling and how these figures passed down through generations continue to shape our understanding of fear and the unknown.
Our global tapestry of terror is becoming richer and more intricate with every stop. But I can't help but wonder, what is it about the bogeyman that continues to fascinate us, even in our modern, supposedly enlightened age?
That's a question worth pondering, isn't it? Perhaps it's because the bogeyman in all his various forms reminds us that fear is an enduring part of the human experience.
I think you're right. And as much as we might try to rationalize it away, those primal fears,
Yeah.
the fear of the dark, the fear of the unknown, the fear of being taken away, never truly disappear.
They don't. And perhaps the bogeyman in all his creepy glory provides a safe outlet for those fears,
Okay.
a way to confront them and explore them without actually facing real danger.
Okay, that's a really interesting thought. It's like
Yeah.
the bogeyman is a kind of cultural pressure valve, allowing us to release those anxieties in a controlled
Yes.
and even entertaining way.
Precisely. And by understanding the bogeyman, by exploring his many faces and the stories he embodies,
Right.
we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, our cultures, and the enduring power of fear.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in our Bogeyman World Tour, and I'm feeling both enlightened and a little bit spooked. But I'm eager to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic. What other insights await us in our exploration of the Bogeyman? Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on this incredible journey,
It has been a journey.
exploring the world of the Bogeyman, and as we've discovered,
Yeah,
he's far more complex and fascinating than I ever imagined.
he really is.
It's amazing to think that these figures passed down through generations of storytelling still have the power to spark our imaginations and maybe send a few shivers down our spines.
But I've been thinking about something you said earlier, how the bogeyman embodies those primal fears common to all humans. If that's the case, why does he take on so many different forms?
That's a great question. It speaks to the adaptability of these figures, you see. The Bogeyman isn't a static entity. He's a chameleon morphing to fit those specific anxieties in cultural contexts.
So it's like he's a blank canvas onto which each culture projects its own unique fears and taboos. Exactly. Take, for example, the Kaluppaluit from Inuit mythology.
Right.
They embody those very real dangers of the Arctic waters,
Yeah.
reflecting the Inuit people's close relationship with and respect for their environment.
That's so true. Or think about the Sagman, who's prevalent in regions with a history of child abduction. He taps into a very real societal fear,
He does.
giving it a tangible form and a cautionary tale to pass down.
Precisely. The bogeyman evolves alongside the cultures that create him.
Yeah.
He's a reflection of their fears, their anxieties, and even their values.
Okay, so if the Bogeyman is this cultural mirror reflecting those anxieties of each society, what can we learn by studying his different forms?
That's where things get really interesting. By analyzing the specific traits and behaviors of each bogeyman, we gain insights into cultural values, historical events, and even the psychological landscape of different societies.
So it's like a window into the collective psyche of a culture.
Exactly. For instance, the fact that many bogeymen are associated with darkness or shadows might tell us something about how those cultures viewed the night as a time of danger, mystery, or even the supernatural.
That makes sense. Or think about how some bogeymen are associated with specific rules or taboos.
Yes.
It shows how these figures are often used to enforce societal norms and ensure conformity.
Precisely. The bogeyman becomes a tool for social control, a way to instill obedience and discourage behaviors deemed undesirable.
It's fascinating how something that starts as a scary story for children can reveal so much about the culture that created it. But we've been talking about the bogeyman in like a historical context.
Right.
What about today? Do these figures still hold any relevance in our modern, supposedly rational world?
That's an important question. While we might not believe in literal monsters anymore, the anxieties that the bogeyman embodies are still very much alive.
Yeah.
We might not worry about being stuffed into a sack by a shadowy figure, but we still have fears and uncertainties that keep us up at night.
That's so true.
Yeah.
We might worry about things like crime, disease, economic instability. Things that, in a way, represent the modern-day bogeyman.
Exactly. Those anxieties might not take the form of a hairy monster or a creepy old woman.
Right.
But they still evoke those primal fears.
Right.
The fear of the unknown, the fear of loss, the fear of losing control.
So, in a way, the bogeyman never really goes away.
I don't think so.
He just evolves to fit our modern anxieties.
That's a very insightful observation. And just like the bogeyman stories of old, these modern anxieties can be a source of both fear and fascination. They can paralyze us, or they can motivate us to find solutions and create a safer, more secure world.
This is blowing my mind. I never realized how deeply ingrained the bogeyman is in our collective psyche, even in the 21st century. But if he's still relevant today, what can he teach us about ourselves and how we deal with fear?
I think one of the most important lessons is that fear, while a natural emotion, doesn't have to control us. Just like in those bogeyman stories where characters often find ways to outsmart or defeat the monster, we too have the power to confront our fears and find ways to overcome them.
That's a really empowering message. It's like saying, yes, there are things that scare us, but we don't have to let those fears dictate our lives.
Precisely. And often the best way to overcome those fears is to understand them, to shine a light on them, and to see them for what they truly are.
Okay, I'm starting to see a connection here. By exploring the bogeyman, by understanding his origins, his many forms, and the anxieties he embodies, we're really taking a step towards understanding and confronting our own fears.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to our own psyche, examining those dark corners where our fears reside, and realizing they might not be as monstrous as we imagined.
This has been an incredible journey.
It
We started with a simple question. Who is the bogeyman? And ended up delving into the depths of folklore, psychology, and even sociology. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of this figure and the role he plays in shaping our perceptions of fear and the unknown.
It's been a fascinating exploration, and I hope it's encouraged our listeners to not only appreciate the richness and diversity of folklore, but also to reflect on their own fears and how they might be shaping their lives.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of the bogeyman, I'm left with one final thought. If the bogeyman can teach us anything, it's that the things we fear often say more about ourselves than they do about the actual threats we face.
A powerful takeaway indeed. So as you go about your day, keep an eye out for the bogeyman in your own life.
Oh, yeah.
Not the literal ones, of course, but those fears, anxieties, and uncertainties that might be holding you back.
And remember, just like in the stories, you have the power to face your fears, to outsmart them, and to emerge from the shadows stronger than ever.
It's been a pleasure exploring the world of the bogeyman with you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.